Hey everyone, welcome to Tabletop Blueprint. I'm RP, and in case you don't know, I've released a Kickstarter for a new tabletop role playing game, but I don't really want to talk about it today. Mostly because I'm not the one who is actually releasing this Kickstarter. I was approached by the amazing folks at MythWorks who have released games like The Wild Sea, Slug Blaster, The Last Caravan, CBR plus PNK. Truly like amazing games. And a year ago, they reached out and they were big fans of Breathless. And they approached me to take Breathless and create a brand new edition of the game and release it in the same format that they had done for CBR plus PNK. So it's like a VHS style little package filled with pamphlets that will include the core rules and all the adventures and like new rules that weren't in the original game and a couple of like things I will not talk about yet today because we're still making some cool plans, but it's pretty sweet. But I mean, Breathless is a pretty popular game, if I dare say so myself. It is one of my most known and beloved TTRPG, and it's been acted over 300 times, with 100 of those acts being published on like a Japanese website, which is completely amazing. So I figured that it would be pretty cool to take some of the core rules, like the core rules modifications that I have done for the new edition that we're releasing on Kickstarter, and bring them back to the original game. But then as I looked into it, the layout was pretty different from what we're making for the Kickstarter. So I decided to redo the layout entirely and change all the fonts and use new art and redo the character sheet from scratch. And then I didn't know what to do with this game. So I figured, why not release it for free? Because that's what I do. So today I figured that we would be looking at the new pamphlet that I have made and released for free. So I'm going to drop a link in the description so that you can get your copy. No strings attached. It's just a cool game and it's free. And then, I want to go over the rules and maybe talk a bit about like what I had in mind when I was designing them. So yeah, let's jump in. Okay, so here we go. We've got the brand new pamphlet version of the game now with some truly striking art made by Vil. I'm not sure. My French speaking brain is tricking me a little bit, but they've made like truly creeping art for Mothership in the past, and we decided to work with them for Breathless, and they've made like something truly great. I really love one thing that I really love about this art is that the lungs were a pretty important aspect of Breathless, like especially for the SRD when we released it. It was like the Breathless logo was all about the lungs, and I really love that they kind of kept this aspect inside the zombie. So I think that's pretty cool. If you're looking at the character sheet and you remember Breathless, like the old edition, you may see that a couple of things have changed. There's no more stress. It's now called harm. It's not 4 boxes, it's 5 boxes. Grit is essentially the new stunt, and I'm going to talk about that in a second. And there's no more med kits, and instead it's just a big row of items. So I'm going to go over those changes soon, but let's head over to the actual rules of the game. I'm going to zoom in a bit. So I decided to flip the order of information. In the past, you would have like the core rules, and then you would have character creation in the tables. I decided to change things so that the first thing you see is actually the pitch for the setting that I tweaked a little bit because we decided to, I wanted to align it better with the kind of world that we were building for the new edition. So the first sign of the infection was the memory loss. And then, for some, the change. Those became the breathless, ravenous dead who tore the world apart. One bite wakes the sickness inside, and soon you join their endless swarm. You are alongside strangers with one thing left to do: shoot, loot, survive. So to create your skill, choose their name, pronouns, prior occupations. There's a table for this. You have 6 skills and you assign a D10, a D8, and a D6 to 3 of the skills. The remaining 3, you set them to a D4. And then you pick an item that you add to your inventory as a D10 item. There's a table for weapons and long range weapons that you can use here. And then some guidelines as to what the GM does and what the player do as well. So yeah, so we've got some rolling tables. So I decided to update a little bit. Like all the tables, I was able to add a bit more items. I think it was for the locations and occupations. I think those used to be D12 tables. I was able to actually bump them to D20 tables. So we've got a couple of more like occupations and a couple of more locations. I think I was able to add 2 more complications as well. No, I know. I think that's a lie. But anyway, more tables. Let's go to the core mechanics. So when a character tackles a challenge or try to avoid a consequence, their player makes a check. You first determine the risk. The player chooses a skill, and then you roll that die. If another player character helps, they also make a check and share the same risk. And you keep and look at the highest result. So if someone else is helping, they also roll, and you keep the best die of the two, right? On a 1 or 2, the action fail, and when facing a consequence, it is suffered in full. So there are kind of 2 paths to this. Like you could use checks for when you're tackling like challenges, but also if the GM is kind of prompting a consequence upon you, something like, well, a zombie like a breathless comes at you and tries to bite you. Well, it's not just like an action that you're doing, it's a reaction. So checks are used for both actions and reactions. And when it is for reactions to try to avoid consequences, in the case of a 1-2, it is suffered in full. So for a 3-4, the action succeeds, but with a reduced effect. And for consequences, it is lessened. And on a 5+, it's a straight success. And the greater the result, the greater the effect. And now we've got like the classic Breathless twist where every time you roll, the skill die that you used will step down. It will go down by 1 step. So D12, D10, D8, D6, and D4. Like, if this is your first time reading Breathless, you may be wondering what happens when all my dice are a D4. And we're going to get to that. One other thing that I added in other Breathless games, including Tales of the Burned Stones or Stoneburner, is the concept of positioning. So, see, this is kind of like an advantage or disadvantage mechanic, but a bit more like, I think, a bit clearer. So when the fiction has a significant impact on a check, the GM can set the roll's position. If a character's position is so good that their action is absolute, there is no need to roll. The action will succeed outright. When you're avoiding a consequence, well, if a zombie tries to bite at you and you've got like full body armor, like it won't do anything. You don't need to roll, right? So it's kind of like a quick reminder of like, well, if it's absolute, like it's certain that this thing will happen or not happen. So in the case of like, I call this absolute positioning or dire positioning. So in the case of dire, it's like, well, the odds are so bad that like the action is either impossible to attempt, but in the case of a consequences, well, the consequence is impossible to avoid. You will suffer this, whatever you try to do. So you need, and then you have good and bad positions. So a good position, you step up the die that you wanted to use. So if you add like a D8 die that you wanted to use, which was like your dash skill. Well, if you're in a good position, that die becomes a D10, but temporarily. It doesn't change the actual rating of the die that you use. It just changes the rating of the die that you will roll. And then it steps down at normal. So if it was a D8, you roll a D10, but you still step down that D8 to a D6, right? So it's the same thing for a bad position. In the case of a bad position, you use a lower die rating. So for grit used to be called stunt, but I think grit is a better term. And I think this is the term I've used in more recent games. A grit is a single-use D12. It's your joker. It's like, I don't have a lot of high die ratings anymore. So what can I do? You have your grit. If you're a player and you're watching this video, use your grit. Please use your grit. My players forget about it constantly. It is so powerful. Don't forget about it. And it's kind of like one of the reasons why on the character sheet, I decided to make it like black and in the same column as your skills. You look at your skills, you see them all, and they're just Oh no, they're all at a D4. What can I do? Can I loot? No, that doesn't apply. Grit. What's this? Use your grit. It's important. So if you've read Breathless before, you will be familiar with the catch your breath mechanic. If not, well, this is how you reset your skills. Eventually, all your skills are going to be very low and you'll want to reset them. And you do so by catching your breath. And you just say, I catch my breath. You can do that during combat, during chase. Doesn't matter. You can do that at any time. It is literally just your character taking a breath for a second. But when you do so, it resets all your skills. You gain your grit back because your grit is a single use thing. So you get your grit back. But then the GM introduces a new consequence for the whole group. If you're familiar with like games powered by the apocalypse, that's kind of like a strong move. That's the GM like getting their Joker, their big card of just, oh, now I can make something like pretty bad. So it's kind of like this. If you've watched like zombie media and you see the characters and they enter like a little shop and they think that they're safe from the swarm outside, and then like eventually there's just like they catch their breath for a second and then the door bursts open and there's a zombie there, right? It's to reinforce that kind of vibe. So now Breathless is a concept of safe rests. So when you perform a safe rest, you need to have a safe shelter and you need to stay there for at least a day. And when you do so, you get the same benefit as if you were catching your breath, but no consequence. So you are safe, all good. Like the GM cannot pull something on you. Also, you can clear a certain amount of harm on your character sheet, and we're going to get to harm very quickly. And now that I'm looking at this, I feel like I will probably move the arm section above because I don't like that harm is talked about here, but it's not been introduced yet. So I guess I'll publish a little update on the PDF. Item a character carries as a die rating ranging like from a D4 to a D12. So that reflects the quality or the quantity of the items. So if your character is looting stuff, they're going to find items, and those items will be added to their inventory, and those items have a die rating. In the previous version of the game, items could be used for checks. That's not the case anymore. Now items can improve your position, either making you use a step up die or maybe bringing your position to an absolute position where you actually don't need to roll. But every time you use an item, you roll it. And if you get a 5+, the item remains unchanged. Its die rating stays as it is. On a 3-4, it is marked as stressed. And when it is stressed, it's fine. It doesn't change yet. And on a 1-2, if the item was stressed, it's gone. Otherwise, it steps down. So if it was like a D8, it steps down to a D6. But if it was a D8 and it was stressed because you had gotten a 3-4 prior, then it's just gone. There's no like D6 and D4, and then it's gone. It skips all of that. So I have some notes to say that you can repair items with a check if you have like the right tools or the time. But yeah, like items are really about positioning. So loot checks. This changed a little bit again compared to the original game, but now when you use your loot die, you have a D12 loot die, and it's always a D12, but it can step down. So when you roll to loot on a 5+, you find an item, and the higher the result, the higher the quality or the quantity of the item. So we're going back to the item rule. On a 3-4, you find something, but like the quality or quantity may not be as good. And on a 1-2, well, you find nothing and a consequence occur. So every time you do that, the loot skill steps down. So it was a D12 and then D10. And so the more you loot, well, the more the chances you're actually going to find a consequence, and the more the chances you may roll a 1 or a 2. So you can still loot at a D4, but there are risks. And lastly, harm. So when you face a consequence with your character faces a consequence, you can get a number of harm. 1, And when you reach 5 harm, you become vulnerable. And at that point, failing a check could mean death. This is pretty much how stress used to work. It's been renamed, and I decided to bump the number of stress from 4 to 5 to balance things out a little bit. But yeah, I think that like it's a pretty sweet little makes for truly impactful one shot because you have all those skills that step down and then you use your grit and then you feel powerful and then you have nothing left. And then you catch your breath and then you have consequences and then you loot and you loot and you loot and you have consequences again. So you really have like this continuous cycle of tension rising up, and then you've got a release. You've caught your breath, you've found a cool item, and then tension rises and rises and rises and escalates, and then a release. So it's a very fun system, and I've been having fun playing this game uh, a lot and hacking it as well because those kind of mechanics are super useful for other types of settings as well because well, it's all about tension, and we do love tension because tension creates drama. Um, so yeah, I hope you like this little read through of the game. I'm gonna leave a link to the Kickstarter. If you love this PDF, just it's free. Go download it. And if you want to support us, our campaign is I think it's lasting until there's still like 3 more weeks to go on the campaign. And we're just over 50% of our funding goal, which is our funding goal is really like we've invested a lot of time and bought like a bunch of super cool art. And the our funding goal is just honest. It is not a way to like we don't have like a low funding goal to try to sway you into like, oh, we funded in like 30 minutes because our funding goal was like $4,000. It's like, no, we've invested a lot already into this game because we believe that it is truly something special. So we really need your help to fund and to make this game a reality. But yeah, I'm going to leave a link in the description. And thank you for watching and see you next time.